Alright, so I have no idea which number this one is because it's been so long since we've done one. I think it's been like 6 months. But again, we got JJ Boyd. He's right there. The guy from North Carolina. And then we've got Tom Smith, originally from Sweden. You could tell by the accent. And he's over in Venice right now. And he just attended the MOM. So I have a fairly good idea that we're probably going to have him recap as much of the MOM that he can remember, you know, through his addled mind right now.
Well, no, it was pretty. I suppose it was pretty good. I missed the announcements, so the announcements I saw were announced to me by other members after the announcements were made, because I was preparing my presentation as usual up to the last seconds. You know, literally I was typing it as the guy was packing up. Patrick Schaub was ahead of me in presentations. His was the first presentation of the, let's say, independent of the MikroTik. So yeah, no, it was good. It was a good number. It was they said there was over 1,200 people.
Oh wow!
In attendance.
Nice.
And 36 women. So that's a record, you know.
How many of them did you sing to?
Well, actually, I brought my girlfriend with me, so I had to be really, really good.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, because I was curious. Yeah, because I've heard you sing before, and I was wondering, did you actually try and sing in Italian? Did you go all the way?
I did in the bar. That was more generally. I was singing to a couple of guys as well, so I think I scared them as well. And
I see.
I managed to apparently upset a load of Brazilians because I was slagging them that they always curve the football when they're kicking it, and I was asking them why can't they not kick a football straight. And I think there could possibly be a hate campaign, and it may not be safe for me to travel to Brazil.
You may or may not get kidnapped. Yeah.
Basically, but no, it was nice. Like, look, I've a lot of good friends that you know, that like my first one was in 2007, and it was in Krakow, and I've gone to every European MOM since then, and I tried to get to the US MOM, missed out last year narrowly. Felt really bad because I could hear ye all Skyping and Twittering and chatting about and on Gmail talking about what was happening, so I was, have to say, insanely jealous of you. So right now it's your turn to be insanely jealous.
Yeah, have no doubt, brother. I actually saved up enough money to go, and then life got in the way, and I changed jobs again, and then I couldn't make it happen because of, well, everything. You know, I didn't have any vacation. Apparently, my wife tells me I need to save that money to purchase a house now. So.
Oh man!
You gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. But I really want to go. I really want to go to the European one.
Tell Christy that's a terrible idea. The MOM would have much better.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I could live out of the back of a van. I could do that.
Yeah, no, I think.
I'm not sure she would like that so much. Christy, yeah.
You get used to anything. If you get used to me, you get used to that.
Well, if it was a Beetle van, like, I mean, all you have to do is grow long hair and a beard, and
yeah, I don't know that the long hair's really gonna work, and I really don't appreciate you bringing that up either. It's kind of it's a bit of a sore subject. I don't.
Sorry, I just.
But
there was a couple of Americans. There was a guy with the most perfect beard I have ever seen. It was like. It was awesome. I also told him that. I think I told him that at about 3:30 or 4 in the morning. He was quite gracious about the compliment.
That's
but
good.
It was really cool, really nice guy. Oh man! And then there was Tassos from Titan Wireless. He was there.
Oh, was he?
And his wife was on his way, and I also told him his wife was hot. He took it quite well as well, actually. He was very gracious about that.
I think, yeah. I don't know how well that would work on strangers, but anybody that knows you, I think, would probably be all right.
Yeah, no, it was good. But then he showed me a video or a picture of him deer hunting. So I reckon I'm not kind of safe within 500 yards of him in the States.
So speaking of hunting and firearms and such, we seen some photographs that you had sent around where you enjoyed some of our culture while you were, I guess, in Florida some time ago.
I have to say, I was educated. I was reborn, and I think I went from gun control to. I won't say I'm quite Mr. Heston or anything like that now, but yeah, I can understand one's attachment to home private armory. Let's just put it that way.
So you were baptized in bullets.
It was pretty cool, I have to say. I most enjoyed the shotgun pro. And as my friend Pat Harris said, he goes, well, the shotgun's for giving, Tom, I suppose. So, and when I first shot the 45, I pretty much made the target dance. The target didn't get hit, but and just Pat goes, I feel safer already. So,
nice.
It was awesome, I have to say. You know, and it's good in good safe hands. So.
Oh yeah, that's the culture. You know, I mean, there's multiple cultures. Greg and I were talking about this before you came in, and you know, there's the culture where you don't, you know, just careless and recklessness with firearms, and then there's the culture that it sounds like you were exposed to, and that's mostly the culture that's, you know, bred into Americans is, you know, respect it. Here's how you use it. Here's how to maintain it. You know, not what the media puts out there with, you know, 50 shot in the street today or this or that. You know, it's that's an element of society that nobody is proud of. You know.
Well, if they had a rock, they'd probably kill 50 people with a rock. Yeah, no, crazies are crazies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. Absolutely, it was like it was in a private gun range. You know, with, you know, big embankments, and, you know, they even had the flag for, you know, saying we're in active firing. And no, it was really cool, and the people there obeyed good gun safety, and I was schooled in it. I was told not to point the gun backwards or further out. So, no, it was, and I have to say, a few times I was overexcited like a little boy. So yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm saying that if I had $2,500, I'd be getting a Browning Satori. So beautiful nice. Shotgun, beautiful.
And you would visit it every mum that you came to. Somebody would bring it for you to try out.
Yeah. So, no, but like the mum was cool. Like, so you know, there wasn't enough of you guys, and it would be great. And I feel really bad about one thing. I'm going to ask MikroTik to dub it in, but I didn't do a big shout out to you guys and the Brothers Wisp and all the great knowledge sharing you do. So I'll make it up for it in the US. You know, I'll make sure I'll do about 10 minutes.
their website, and it looks like they've got a lot of the Russian moms and the Western European stuff posted, but I guess they've not kind of slated the U.S. mom this year.
No, I think they just the U.S. I suppose the U.S. mum, if I was to compare it to the European mum, is the European mum would have a bit more diverse cultures, because like if you look at the trainers and the languages that even the trainers in Europe have, you know, you're talking about Norwegians coming, Italians, even crazy Irish, a few, you know, Germans you get, and then you've got all these tiny little countries which would have maybe a couple of 100,000 people as opposed to, you know, a couple of million. So you have guys from Georgia, then you got guys from you know, Russia. There's although I have to say I have a beef with Russia right now. At 4 o'clock in the morning, a Russian guy came in. We were sitting having a bottle of Paddy's Irish whiskey, and yeah, he fumbled it as he was trying to pour one for himself, and 3/4 of a bottle of lovely Irish whiskey, and six very disappointed guys on looking. What have you done? I was like, no worries, no worries. That was just Yanis's bottle. We'll just go and we'll get another bottle.
So you snuck into Giannis's room and swapped them quietly, and then went back.
No, there's no sneaking into his room. You know, he would definitely crush you with his bare hands. You know, and it was good fun. I had good time slagging him. I actually did have a serious conversation with him once, which is a bit disappointing. You know, but then again, often we just talk shop, and I think he may get tired of that. So I think that we just kept messing and slagging each other off and telling each other how much we hate each other. And being honest, for the people, I love Giannis, and I think Giannis loves me, but he tells everyone he hates me.
Gotcha. So you guys just ripped each other apart, and then right at the end you kiss, and then you leave, and then everything's great. Right?
I tried to, but he didn't go for the kiss. He was distinctly uncomfortable.
Gotcha. Did you give him a good game right on his butt? Bam.
No, I didn't do that this year. Although I did it to Sergey at the restaurant, and Sergey didn't appreciate it, and he's a good actor because he looked like he looked scary. He looked like he was really annoyed with me.
Really?
And then, I was kind of going, so I kind of went, ooh, and just move away. And I came up to him, he came over later, and I was going, hey man, sorry about that, I was only messing, like there's nothing there, and he was like, he just burst out laughing, like he was just having me on. So I have to say, MikroTik got their own back on me with that. But the coolest product I've seen from MikroTik would have to be the 1072 cloud core router, dual power supply, I don't know, a gazillion fans.
Oh yeah.
8 SFP plus 10 gig interfaces, apparently wire speed, like the initial tests, and it is very early days, like there was no branding on it, but the initial tests are saying that it will be wire speed kind of with fastpath, so as long as you're not doing any crazy configuration on it, you'll get 80 gig throughput or 160 gig, which is phenomenal when you think about it. There's 1 gig Ethernet management port on it, a smart card reader, which I have to say blew me away. I was like, seriously guys, which is kind of cool. They had a 3G or they had a mini PCI Express interface with the SIM card reader. And MikroTik are going to think I'm a right asshole now, but if I was to say something bad about it, well, I'll say something good and then I'll say something bad. They have 16 gigs of onboard ECC RAM, which I think is pretty cool, but it's onboard. It's all on the chip, so they don't have 2 DIMMs, so it's actually just integrated. And perhaps
did they have the hardware there in person where you actually got to see it, or is it photographs?
I got to see it, and would you believe I didn't get photographs, but I know a few Italians who have, so I'll get my hands on it, and I'll get it over to you as well. I actually just didn't have my phone charged when I was there, but no, like I actually saw it in person. I actually got to touch the heatsink, and I was surprised at how cool it was because it was massive. It was about 4 inches square. By 1 inch, so
it's pretty big.
It was but then again, it is a Telera 72 core.
72 core. So and I suppose they weren't trying to run 80 gigs through it either.
No,
right?
they had a couple of lights on it, and kind of go, look there, it's working. It wasn't like
So it wasn't really under load or anything like that. Yeah.
No, but but in fairness, it was Yanis who says that, and generally, he's not the marketing bullshit type.
Right.
Excuse the language. Sorry, kids, don't use bad language if you're listening. But no, that one was I suppose the sexiest product, the dual power supply. The build quality, it was quite a heavy router, much heavier than what we'd be familiar with. And they also had these nice little clamps for the cables to stop them coming out of the back for the power. You know, like you'd see on, as you and JJ would be more than familiar with all the servers, you know, the professional ones where they have these clamps to stop accidental movement of the server. So that was really, that was an awesome one. They also have this other one, which I suppose is more accessible for the mere mortals like me, who are still just sub 10 gigabit per second.
Right.
Which was it was a 1016 cloud core, so 16 core cloud core, but 8 SFPs and 1 SFP plus with dual power supply.
Are you talking about the 1016 12S? That one?
12S, and yeah, so that was there in person. I don't know if that was announced before, but I certainly wasn't aware of an all fiber one.
Yeah. So I'm kind of excited about that one. With the 1 gig optic and then 12. It's just for like transport. So we're just doing like point to point from one place to the other. You know, the 10 gig, and then you breaking it out to, you know, I guess theoretically you could run 12 people, because nobody ever really maxes all of their stuff out at once. I mean, that would be perfect for that.
Absolutely. I actually thought it was 8. Hold on, just 1 second. Allow me consult my little manual here. I tell you, this book is getting thicker and thicker. I'd say the guys who have to try the stuff are probably going, oh man, gee. But for us, it's great. For the users, it's great. But for distributors, they're probably getting a royal pain in their asses at the moment. But 12. Why are you all? Oh, yes, as usual, Greg is right. Yes, it is the 12S. Yes, and that's how it looks.
Nice. Oh, do a close up of the dual power supply. What does that look like on there? Just a couple of regular plugs.
Oh, sorry. My belly actually managed to press the mouse, which is a bit worrying. I have to lose weight.
I gotcha. So it's just
nice.
a couple of power supplies and it auto switches inside, I guess.
It's auto switches. I remember discussing it with them, as I think Mike, one of the mails that we were discussing about various different things, we noticed that maybe MikroTik didn't want us to notice at the time, but you remember the dual header that we were seeing on board, and I asked the guys about that. I said, what's the story? And they said, yeah, you can put a second power supply and we can detect the presence of a second power supply if there's at least 2 volts of a difference between each power supply. So you could have one, I think the minimum voltage is around 14 volts. And then, so you'd have 14 volts and 16 or 14 and 18 volts, then they'd be able to actually detect, you know, your A and B. So I presume maybe in software you can see that both power supplies are active and healthy, and you can get a warning if there's a failure. But I was just,
so those power supplies are not removable from what I see in that photograph there?
Absolutely not, no. Like I'm just going to open up. It's, being honest, they're the exact same as the power supplies. If you've opened up the standard cloud core router, it is a, sorry guys, it, like the power supplies inside are they're pretty much a custom power supply, and they're bolted in. Like I would put it as the build quality is like a lot better than the 1100s, you know, where they have the plastic kind of power supplies in. At least these are like a chassis based one.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, no, they're not hot swap. And I'd say MikroTik just get tired and they go, oh man, we're just after putting in dual power supplies, and now they want dual redundant hot swap.
Well, it's going to satisfy all the guys that say, well, I have to build on a server so I can have 2 power supplies, so you don't really have to worry about that. I bet the mean time between failure on those things is probably like 20 years. So, I mean, the odds are at least one of those babies is going to rock for 20 years. So even if you lose one, you're still going to keep going.
So on the CRS 226, kind of jumping around here, that has SFP plus, or is it just SFP?
The CRS 226, hold on, I have that. There is, okay, there's 24.
That's the new switch, right?
Yeah,
there's
the 20
switch with a 10 gig uplink, and here it is. Oh my god. And it is, yes, here it is. So you can see on the left there's the two SFP Plus, sorry. And
they're both SFP Plus or just one?
Sorry, two 10 gig SFP Plus cages.
Oh wow.
With DDMI support, which is nice. So they're using the Atheros, they're using some QCA. So it's the same one as the other. Actually, no, it's actually a good bit faster. So they're using these QCA processors, which is the same as the board you probably saw. I think it was announced at the US MUM, which was, you know, the one in the 433. I been honest, I have no memory for their model names anymore. They're always just there's a load of numbers.
Right.
Like encryption keys almost.
They should come out with like names for them, like cars. Like, you know.
Or JJ Boyd. They should name them after their favorite customers. So there
you go.
Or just the noisiest customers, I guess is what you're saying.
Just as long as they don't like name the mini AP after me, and then the uber brilliant cloud core router after someone else. Like if it's my biggest competitor, I'd be pissed. Like, you know, I'd be like, oh, Tom's the mini AP. But like after cars, I would agree with you, JJ. It's and I think it was my friend Yanis Migas we have to blame for most of them. He has the whole thing of the first letter is the processor type, and then the second letter, which is good, but then when they get into like, oh well, this one has 2 USBs, but it's also 2 gigahertz, and how do we do this without, you know, anyway, and then 2 chains.
I remember giving Giannis shit about that, and then eventually he sent me a wiki link and said, here, this explains it.
Yes. Yes, our point exactly. You need a massive document to explain the, you know. It's
like a decoder ring. We should make a decoder ring. Where just like...
that would be cool. But they also have this QRT5, which
I'm excited about that personally.
Yeah, and it has a tip and tilt bracket and an earth clamp included. So, would you believe I didn't see it up close because I thought it was the QRT2, and I went, "Who cares?" Sorry, like we don't use the 2 gigahertz.
I'm trying to figure out what market 3 watts is acceptable.
I think it's anyone. Like, I suppose the way I'd put it is, if the regulators are busy enforcing license stuff and they don't make any money, unless you're like taking out aircraft communications, they don't really care. If you know that kind of way, But having said that, yeah, I think some of the noise can be like for me, I much prefer a sextant or a QRT product with lower amplifiers than, you know, putting a massive amp on an Omni to try and make a link work over distance. So, you know, RF wise, it's clean, but that's not a criticism. I think they learned.
It looked at, when I looked at the spec sheet on the QRT2, it looked like you know, at full modulation MCS 7, you were looking at 30 dBm.
You are at MCS 0, it's 30 dBm, and it's 24. Oh, sorry, this. Oh, you could be right. Hold on. Jesus. Yes. You are right. Sorry, I was looking at the Sexton model. So yes, the QRT2 is like 35 dBm at MCS 0.
That's good. Yeah. So you do is you just lay it flat, and then you put your bowl of soup on it, and then 2 minutes later you pull it off, and it's ready to eat. I think that's how that works.
Well, that's so you can mount it inside the house or inside the structure, right? You just lay it on the desk and say, "There you go, your install's done."
and we throw in the brain cancer for free.
There you go.
Burn a hole through the wall. I like this. Like, it looks pretty good. In fairness, the specs on the like they're saying like that it's 33 dBi plus or minus 1.
Did we lose him there?
No, I think we lost him for a second.
Can you hear me?
There you go. You're coming back.
Hello.
Welcome back to America. There we go.
Thank you. God bless America and no one else. So I was saying that in the US quite a bit.
Well, you're mispronouncing it.
In the war.
The A is actually silent.
I have to.
Yeah, it's America.
Merca.
Huh?
So the A is silent in America. Just Merca.
America. But yeah, I said that that was very popular. But when I was saying that the South lost the war, that didn't go well.
I know, dude. We don't appreciate all that northern aggression.
Yeah, I believe that you're in a state of hostile ceasefire. It could kick off anytime again. I don't know what over, but it may be over tax or big government. But I don't think it'll be about slavery, in fairness to the guys in the South. But
yeah.
I saw some Confederate flags while I was there, which I thought was kind of cool. The General Lee, I think, is it the General Lee, the flag? Or
well, you know, Florida's technically not the South because I mean, it's southern located, but the populace is not as southern as other southern states, if you will.
Probably not as southern as they once were.
I think. Being honest, when I was in the rural parts, I would probably agree with you that you know, the East Coast would be you know, but I was in the rural parts and I got that very good southern hospitality, like I got in Texas, like in New Orleans, you know, which you know, it was amazing, you know. I have to say it was. It's always a lovely experience to go over to the States anyway. But I'm not going to kiss your ass any more than that now. But no, like this one is pretty good, like 23 dBi, but it's for the size, for being dual polarity and the performance. I just hope they're not, you know, airbrushing the results. But it looks like it'll be very good because, you know, for us wireless ISPs. You know, you need to be getting distance around the 6 or 7 or 8 miles at least, you know, for numbers and costs. So I'm hoping that it will. But like the QRT5, it's 30 dBm at MCS 0 and 24, so it's respectable. And like being honest, I've no problem turning my stuff down because I prefer a better antenna and a lower output power and keep things nice and. Contrary to what I do in real life with my voice, but keep things nice and quiet. With the RF side.
I've got a 43-mile link that I'm going to deploy a set of those on to test and put it head to head against some of the Ubiquiti equipment, and we've started upgrading, or I should say, phasing out some of our backhauls in favor of MikroTik over the course of the last. I would say about 7 months or so. It seems like there's some firmware issues that we just can't get resolved, and I love Ubiquiti to death, but I think when you get a lot of I don't want to elaborate on it too much, but I think there's maybe perhaps too many chefs in the kitchen these days. So I think there's a little maybe. I'm not going to elaborate on it, but I would be extremely happy to see them return to their roots a little bit and put a lot of focus into the, you know, the guys that made them instead of you know, shopping for pie in the sky.
Gotcha. And I know another interesting thing is, and I think everybody's done a bit of this, but there's some new antennas coming out from MikroTik that look awfully familiar. They almost look like something I've seen from Ubiquiti, maybe. And the fact that they have enclosures that look almost like a rocket, snap right on the back. You can put anything in there. It's just there
is one or two like that. But I think Ubiquiti are pretty good at, you know, it's copying other things as well. But no, respectfully, I'd say about the Ubiquiti stuff. I suppose my experience of it is it can work, and but like I use MikroTik, and I'm very heavily. I suppose we use the 800s. I suppose I would give out about both parties that sometimes they're overly optimistic. Like what JJ Boyd there, he's going to put his link through his paces on a 43-mile link. That's going to be hard going for a 23 dBi, but it's a good way of testing how the antennas are performing, and how the amps are performing. And like for us, we would typically use 29 dBi, for even shorter links. The Juris dishes I love. The Rocket dishes are pretty good as well, and with the MikroTik enclosures, people are saying they're getting great results as well. So if you want to upgrade parts of your infrastructure, but I prefer personally myself, I use the 800s with the R52HNs. I get pretty good performance. Like on a 22-kilometer link, you can get with the cool, super duper fudge channel kind of, about 56 megahertz. You're getting about 220, TCP, and this is real traffic, so it's not like which is nice. You get about 160 in either direction if you're doing it. 160 TCP, but you get about 220. You probably could do a bit better, but I am dealing with real-world noise issues as well.
Right. So I've got a question for you. In the MikroTik firmwares and different things, are they have they started expanding and kind of going? Ubiquiti had done this a while ago, where you can take the channels, like have instead of having 20, 10, and 5, you can have 8 meg channels, and 900 megahertz, which is it's really useful at 900, as long as you have enough separation of the antennas. So I was just curious if there's any way to accomplish.
If you go into version 6 of MikroTik, there is a channel custom frequency. And what's really nice is you can set the channel, so you can move the center frequency granularly, left and right, and you can also move the width of your band, and then you can also set whether the, what's your second or your expansion channel is, or your, so they have all that. So like you can set it to, you can set it lower, like 8 megahertz. You can set it higher. Like if you're just being greedy, you don't want to get a license link, or you're trying to squeeze the last bit out of your current investment, or doing some legitimate testing. But there, so you can go 20, 22, 25, anything up to 30 megahertz. For me, based on there's an Italian guy who did a presentation at this year's one, Andrea. Can't pronounce his second name to save my life. I just kind of go, hey, Andrea, we have a drink together. A nice guy, but he's in the moment in Zagreb, and he's talking about wireless links. So I'd recommend you check it out, because he actually does a demo, and he actually did the test. But he was saying, like, look, you can get air rates with the 60 megahertz stuff. You're talking about air rates of about 440 megabits per second. But you need to be down at the low 50s for that type of, for that type, your receive signal needs to be at low 50s. My receive signal was around mid 60s, so I was getting the 160 megabits or 220 UDP. That was kind of where it was. So yeah, you have that, but you have to get a special license, and you have to sign a thing to MikroTik saying that you won't disobey the laws in your country.
Right.
So you have to kind of, cross your toenails as you cross your toes as you're signing a contract or something. But once you have that, you can use it to have smaller channels, like what you're saying, JJ. And we were actually using it. It can be a useful feature. I don't know if you have this problem, but before, where you're trying to use N, where they may not necessarily support it by default in the standards. So instead of, you know, the way sometimes they kind of go, well, these range you can't use N for these particular frequencies. So you can actually go, well, so traditionally in version 5 you'd scan from 5.1 to 6. Or sorry, 5.1 to 6.1, let's say. But it would take quite a while for reassociation during noisy conditions.
Right.
Now what you can actually do is say, you can actually set out classes. So like and it's really nice for migration. So they've kind of, in fairness, I think, thought about the whole thing of, well, what if I want to try 8 megahertz and it doesn't work out and none of my clients associate? So what you can actually do is you can actually set it all up on all your clients. And if you're not expanding the channels, I think you don't even need a special license. What we actually did was, so you can actually set, my first preference is 20 megahertz, or sorry, my first preference is 8 megahertz, my second preference is 10 megahertz channels. And you can have within those groups, scan groups, you can have sub-channels, do you know what I mean? So you can say my first preference is 8 megahertz, second preference 10 megahertz, third preference 30 megahertz, and then back to then your fallback, your standard 20 megahertz, you know, standard band. So you can then pick and choose on your AP, and the client seems to associate quite quickly, because we had this problem where if there was noise in the area, a customer disconnect and it would take them 3 minutes to reconnect because it was going through, you know. It's kind of similar to the channel. I think he had a channel list on some of the Ubiquiti firmware. So believe it or not, I have actually used a little bit of Ubiquiti. I do prefer the Spectrum scanner or Spectrum analyzer in Ubiquiti when Java behaves itself on your computer. It's great. And I like I think you can save the files off. Is that correct on the Ubiquiti one?
Yes.
Can you do that?
I've always just done screenshots.
Yeah, I was going to say screenshots is what we usually do.
Yeah, no, same here. Like, what I'd really love in the MikroTik one, and I've often asked for it, is if they could save it off as a file format, and then you, because you know the way when you go through the waterfall, you can actually see the instantaneous graphs, and you can kind of check out the noise level or the peak noise level at various times, and it's really nice to be able to, you know, you lose all that really cool information that you acquired when you just take a screenshot, you know, but as in, oh, that spike, what happened there? And you can't just move the mouse over. But in terms of products, like we tend to use the 800s for all our point-to-point links, for big, heavy ones. They've this new one, which is a 3x3 MIMO product, and it would go well with the, I think you've seen them at the US mums as well, the MTI, you know, the dual slant 19 dBi, and then there's
how are those performing at distance outdoors? The 3x3 MIMO stuff that I've had the, you know, the, I guess you could say, displeasure of using is it performs very poorly in outdoor environments.
Being honest, I haven't tried it out but I was excited to see it. I would imagine that the more expensive antenna manufacturers, that you mightn't get the same as, you know, some of the cheaper, like, you know, the MTI one I think is in excess of, you know, $130 at least for that MIMO, maybe even more. But if you could get the type of air race that they're talking about and it wasn't a noisy, like, you know, if you have a lot of either Ubiquiti or SXTs in your area, I think it just trashes your, you know yourself, like there's 60-degree beam width. It can be quite painful for everyone, rather than have a nice tight, what we're using, like, fairness to the rocket dishes, you know, if only every subscriber had such a tight beam width, you know, and like, I think some of the better carriers that I've seen in Ireland using either dish-based CPE solutions over, let's say, the cheaper, kind of smaller, compact ones, you know. Yeah, but yeah, I would agree with you. Just getting back to the point about copying, I think good ideas deserve to be copied. Like, you know, the new, I don't know what the Ubiquiti product looks very like a design from RF Elements as well.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
The
so
nano beam, yeah.
Yeah.
that'll be, yeah.
What do they say? It's the most sincere form of flattery.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right?
absolutely. And that's why I shaved my head, guys.
I was hoping. I thought it was
Yeah,
I know you had lice the other day, and you're just trying to get rid of those, but I thought it was something else, perhaps.
No, but like, what I was going to say about there was some really cool presentations, I have to say. Maya is about security. Maya is a friend of mine from Brazil. I got to see his because it was after my presentation, so you know, it's nice when you can relax. Before a presentation, I don't see any. My presentation, I don't see any presentations because I'm usually frantically trying to type my last few slides before I stand up and make a fool of myself. But it was Maya's one was very good. I thought Andreas from Italy's was a very interesting presentation on Wi-Fi, and they were talking about doing ray tracing for in-building stuff. I don't know if there's any other. So they try and simulate, like, you know, the signal levels and what would the coverage be like, which I thought was an interesting concept. I don't know if there was other products that you've used that have that ray tracing software, but it's free. It's on the website there. So it just
Greg
I like
became
that.
quite the wireless expert in the past 12 months.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of that stuff. I ended up using Tamograph Site Survey to do a lot of that stuff, and they've actually got a pretty decent, not for the environment I was in, but for normal environments, a pretty decent predictive. Well, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, normal environments.
A good site survey software. So you basically take like a floor plan, an overlay, and you put it in the software, and then you just really quick draw the walls, burp, 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 and the doors and stuff, and you tell it what the material is. And then you just start drag and dropping access points, and it will predictively show you the radio pattern. And then you can just drag them and drop them, and it instantly, you know, repropagates and shows you, and then it'll kind of calculate like code-channel interference, noise floors, all that good stuff. And I actually found it to be about 15% accurate, or within 15% plus or minus of accuracy.
Sorry.
So I mean that's good enough. I mean that really is good enough to give a quote, and then spits out really pretty reports, and it's really invaluable. But then it did, you know, you could take your same floor plan and then walk around and actually do real world signal meters, you know, and so it would build like a heat map. But another interesting thing it had in there too is whenever you got to a point, you could also do a passive survey where it would just listen to levels, but you could do an active where you run it's basically like iPerf on a server, and so it would, at that point, it would connect and do a throughput test to that iPort server. So you, everywhere you go, not only do you get signal levels, but it does a real world speed test everywhere you walk. So it's kind of blended the real. So it's like it's kind of the only other alternative to the Fluke Air Magnet, which is, I think that product's like $5 to $6 grand, and this one, with all the bells and whistles, is only like $1,000. So it's a fifth of the price, and it did everything I needed.
I used VisiWave Site Survey as well. It's kind of it's nice. It's kind of like I think it's similar to what you were doing, except for the ray tracing stuff. I don't think you can do that. It's more for the site survey side. It can help, and it can integrate with, you know, Channelizer, MetaGeek stuff, so you can do passive, you know, analysis of what interference you're getting from other people. There was a couple of other presentations. There was Valence had a good presentation about quality of service, which is kind of his speciality, from Indonesia. And then there was Ron from the UK, and he had a nice one about quality of service as well. I'm trying to think. But then the other times I was in the halls and I was kind of seeing what other manufacturers were doing. So RF Elements have a really nice, they have two nice products that I think could be nice, that they're going to launch. They have this magnesium alloy. I was kind of asking him, like, you know, I was going, why magnesium? And he says, well, they're in Ferrari wheels, so we thought we could use them. Good choice, you know. But he basically says you can get it, you know, quite light. The the construction of it if it's done smartly. And in fairness to RF Elements, of a lot of the manufacturers that we see at the moment, they have a very good approach to ergonomics and design. You know, there's quite a bit of thought gone into, so I think installers would love them. But they had this, like the typical ball joint stuff, but they had this really discreet. It was basically a dish, 20. They said 22 dBi. He said it should be 24, but he says with the losses currently that they're seeing, it's around 22 dBi. But for around 80 euros, so probably $100, you get this dual polarity dish. Really elegant design. They have the knock holes that they're going to have this kind of radome if you want to put on it. But it was what I really liked about it was the design of the enclosure. They had lovely like Allen bolts, so there's no big nuts or bolts sticking out. It's all Allen bolts, and it's a magnesium alloy all around. So it's an aluminium, magnesium dish, magnesium case. They have some plastic shroud just to make it all look aerodynamic. And the actual bracket, I hadn't seen anything quite like it. It was, you could basically, there was a little handle for the top of the dish, and effectively you could mount your pole, mount the bracket on the pole, and then you just literally slide the antenna into place. You know, so that was pretty nice. But it was all encased in magnesium, so at least you have your RF shielding. You know, it would fit a 712 or 711 or a 912, whatever board you want inside. That one was a pretty nice one, and for the price point and the performance, I think it could be good. There was a lovely sector, about 2 foot high, but they had these interesting grooves that I've seen on kind of more carrier funky. So what they had was these kind of side lobe suppression. So they about an inch at either side of the antenna. They'd have these kind of grooved metal. So rather than the RF armor type, shielding, they were obviously going for these grooves, vertical grooves, cut into metal basically. And he was saying that the front, it improves, like say, your side lobe suppression by maximum of 50 dB, but on average, the minimum was 35 dB. So it was an interesting. It looked very elegant, but. And remember our discussions about side lobes and all the hassle we were having. And I had a good conversation with MTI about the same problem, and also with Juris. So I was asking Juris about the various different products that they had. Like I love the Juris dish. The Juris 29 dBi dish is, for me, a beautiful. The only thing bad about it is, I'll say about it is their edges are quite sharp when you're assembling it, but thankfully I don't do that often, I'm just, it's deployed, but the RF performance of the link is fantastic. And they have these nice sectors, they have a metal enclosure now for the back with a nice kind of quick release system, which I thought was cool for Juris. So that'll be ready, I think, around June. But it was really nice die-cast aluminium back enclosure for the MIMO antennas, not for, I don't know if you're familiar with Juris, but they... You
mean aluminum, right?
I mean aluminium.
You go to your
tomato.
You go to your laboratory to do some research.
Luckily for Irish people, they didn't go potato, because that would have really confused us. But no, aluminum or alloy. Let's just call it alloy. We'll all agree with alloy. Okay? But it was pretty nice. I suppose there was some nice products, but they also had, which I hadn't seen before, which was I suppose a step up in the world, similar to I think Ubiquiti brought out a line of kind of metal enclosure rockets. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
The titanium is what they call them.
Okay, titanium. Like David Guetta's song, Bulletproof. Okay, go on, sing. But there was RF Elements have a very nice enclosure that sits on the back of the sector, which is similar to the plastic one, but it's made of either aluminum or magnesium. So I'm learning quick, guys.
Yeah. I saw RF Elements is making a new little enclosure that you take a regular rocket, you slide it into, and it just snaps around. And I think they're less than $20, $15, something like that. And so it's supposed to kind of give you the shielding that the titanium has, but it's just for regular rockets. And then keeps the same mounting, all that stuff.
I was kind of going back and just now looking at the previous broadcast that we had done back in August on the website here, and kind of pulled up. I had to go way back in time here and pull up a bunch of the stuff that we've not kind of covered on it. Man, there's a lot of stuff that's been announced, and it's really amazing. One of the things, kind of to make a segue here, I'm real good at this. I like jumping around. If you talk to me much, Tom, you have to. I guess you could say my thought process is multi-threaded.
Oh, well, that's very good.
But I was just kind of thinking about the AirFiber5s. I'm extremely excited. We've got a couple of sets of those on pre-order, and hoping that they show up any day. That's the hope anyway. But we're extremely excited about the AirFiber5s. We've got a few sets of 24s two sets of 24s in motion, and they're good. But in the region we're in, all of our stuff is extremely long distance because we're mountaintop to mountaintop. So 24 gigahertz is tough, since we don't have metro deployments. I know Justin Miller. He's got a lot of 24 gig up, and I've not heard a whole lot from him, but I think that they're pretty happy with the performance of it. Yeah,
I think he's got more than anybody else I've heard, and I think that's a testament to how much they like them, is that they keep installing them. So what is it? It's 13 kilometer distance, I think, on the 24s, and then the 5s are supposed to be over 100 kilometers, something like that.
Yeah, that's what they're saying in their documentation. See, I've got some of it up here. The 5 gig, 13 kilometers is what they're saying on the 24s. But I think that in real world,
that's the limit for.
What was that, Tom?
Sorry. So, what's the limit? You were basically on the same. Sorry for interrupting the thought process. Go on, keep going. It's, I think you were about to say what I was about to say. So. Okay,
on the 5 gigs, they're saying 100 plus kilometers. I'm a dumb American, so I think in miles. So that's about 62 miles for all of us.
But I mean, they're using the exact same AirFiber enclosure, right? And then just reprogramming the radios. Isn't that the idea?
No, the enclosures are quite a bit different. It's two, it's like on the 24 gig, the transmit side is the smaller dish because of the EIRP laws involved with 24 gigahertz, and the 5 gigahertz they can produce more ERPs, so the transmit dish and the receive dish are the same diameter on the 5 gig stuff. So I'm really excited to get a set of those in my hands.
How big are the dishes on those things?
I'm wanting to say, let me see if I can find it.
Because the pictures, they don't look very big. They look like they're like a foot or a foot and a half or something like that.
I think they're right at 22 inches or so across, or about 500 millimeters.
Yeah, that just seems so.
That's respectable. So you'd be kind of like, if it was 2 foot, that around 24 dBi, let's say, you're kind of in that type of region of 22. No, 22. Sorry, it'd be somewhere between 24 and 29 dBi if it was a dish. Would I be right in saying that, guys? Or
yeah, it looks like it's about a foot and a half, 1.53,
that'd be about
a foot and a half
dBi if we were looking at, let's say, a Juris dish, the 45 centimeter dish, or the foot and a half will be. But no, but just to ask you about the AirFibers, like 13 kilometers being I presume that's for the lowest performance level. But if you wanted to get, let's say, the advertised throughput, am I right in saying it's like 4 to 6 kilometers? Would I be right in saying that, or?
Yeah, on the 24s, the one we have is at 3 miles, and during heavy rain, we see tremendous fading on it. During some of these heaviest rainstorms that we had through the summer, it was the wettest summer that we've had since I've been on this planet here in my region, and I mean, we just got ridiculous amounts of rain. We had been in drought for multiple years, and this year we just I think it was the wettest season since they've been keeping records here in North Carolina.
We had one of the driest summers ever.
Well, we got it all. It's here in North Carolina. You can come and bring a 5-gallon bucket and get all of it you want. No, but seriously, the one that we have at about 3 miles during those heavy rain events would become completely unavailable. But with the link that we have it deployed on, we do have a 5 gigahertz that it was replacing, so we can offset it. We were replacing the 5 gig because we needed more capacity, so we went with this, and so it's there. I'd say 99% of the time.
Can you use 17 gigahertz in the US, or is that only ETSI regions that we can use? 17?
We don't have a 17 gig ISM band in the US. We have it goes 5 gig, and then the very next thing that you have that's unlicensed is 24 in the US. And we've been playing, when I say we, some friends of mine and myself, with 3 gigahertz stuff because we're all amateur radio operators, and we've been using a lot of 3 gigahertz just to link repeaters together and do VoIP stuff. I can't do anything commercial on it, but I can use 3 gigahertz for funsies.
That's pretty. So it's only for research you can use 3.6, is it, or can you get licensed and use it commercially as well?
Oh yeah, 3.65 is lot licensed in the U.S. And but I'm talking like 3,400 to 3,600 megs. So there's about 200 megahertz of spectrum that the amateur radio operators can use.
That's pretty cool.
And kind of it's still kind of a gray area. The precedence that was set in the U.S. was back in the 80s with amateur radio, and they said that the court system said that it was legal to use an auto patch on a 2 meter, or a VHF repeater to call up, like Pizza Hut and order a pizza. So, well, since people aren't really, ordering pizzas across phone patches anymore, you're using internet and high-speed data. So that precedence is being used to put some commercial traffic on amateur radio spectrum. So it's kind of a huge gray area right now, and we're very cautious of it, and we don't put any commercial traffic on it unless it's just for fun or. But see, the whole caveat of all of it is with amateur radio is, in the event of a actual emergency, you can do whatever you want to. Like, there are no, forget everything that you've ever learned about the law. You can do whatever it takes to pass that traffic.
Absolutely.
So,
if Skynet becomes self-aware, we're going to need you guys to no, but it's kind of true.
Okay, so just in case Skynet needs to order a pizza, JJ will be ready.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there we go.
But I remember,
but that's some of the. I'm sorry.
No, I remember the last the last BrothersWISP that I seen with yourself, JJ, and you were talking about SDR, and Greg was kind of going, everyone knows what SDR is, and suddenly here's Tom going, Googling SDR, what the trying to catch up with you.
Well, what it was is I felt like everybody else knew what it was, but I didn't. I had to actually start doing research on it to figure out what it was.
No, it was a really interesting thing what you were talking about doing the VoIP on really narrow like tight bands, which was pretty awesome. And like they weren't making announcements like that at the moment, I can assure you.
Yeah, we're actually working on a new one, a wideband SDR that covers, you know, all of HF high frequency, and it looks like we're going to be able to get it up to about 1.2 gigahertz. And it's, you know, it's a receiver, so you'll be able to, all the demodulation happens inside the computer. So, you know, whatever scheme the A to D converter will be about 200 kilohertz, and so as long as the signal is under 200 kilohertz wide, you'll be able to demodulate it with this device that we're working on. But we're really wanting to do a transceiver version, and on the transceiver, we're wanting to incorporate the you know, the free DV codec that I was talking about, that you kind of touched on there, and the, you know, the super narrow channel. I've actually done a lot of on the air free DV or codec 2. They call them QSOs, or conversations, you know, on HF. The longest one that I've got in my logbook right now, longest distance wise, is between my place here in North Carolina and another individual in Texas. I've decoded some other stations in other parts of the United States, but it's a brand new mode, and finding people to talk to you on this mode is pretty tough, because, you know, a lot of the guys that do amateur radio are older, and they I mean, it's a good mixture of engineering talent, but a lot of them are older, and, you know, they're kind of stuck in their ways. But there are a lot of people out there pushing the envelope and enhancing the state of the art.
And how, like, is there a site, like, because I find it fascinating, and I do have a few friends in amateur radio, and believe it or not, I'd have to bow to your good self. I have no experience on the amateur radio side, or have been a ham radio operator. And is there any, like, good places where you can kind of, you know, like a wiki, almost like a MikroTik wiki, where you can kind of get kind of started, or like?
Yeah, I would say QRZ, it's QRZ.com, is a good website, and a lot of knowledgeable people. There's a good forum there. That's a really good website to go to. It's kind of it is a global website, but like if you wanted to take practice exams, all the practice exams on there are FCC practice exams. You know, I don't know who your governing body is over there.
But to be comrades, but it's kind of more for ETSI, which I think is the European. It's some French. It's an acronym for French, so, you know, I'm lost then at that stage. But
I got you.
Yeah, but no, that's pretty cool. So, sorry, go on about the QRZ.
Yeah, the QRZ.com. That's kind of play on. There's what's called Q codes in amateur radio, and they're a holdover from the Morse code days. And QRZ means who's calling me, and so that's a call sign database. So if you were to go on there and type in KG for VCF, that's my call sign on there, and it would come up with my information. And so kind of what happens is when you're, you know, conversing with someone over amateur radio, you know, you exchange call signs, and then immediately almost everybody looks you up. Like, it's like almost second nature. Lots of times you give them your call sign, and then they're coming back and saying, "Hey JJ, how are you doing?" You know, you ain't even told them your name, and they're, you know, they've just looked you up that fast. Like my logbook software does it. You type it in, it XMLs over to the QRZ website and pulls the data in just automatically. So you don't have to type in the person's name and location or grid square. But it's all fun stuff. It's an amazing hobby that has been extremely rewarding for me, and anybody that's interested in RF and experimenting with RF. That's the biggest thing, is experimenting.
What's the price footprint to get started? Say, just for somebody who's never done anything, if you want to just get started, how much do you have to pay to really get going?
Well, in the U.S., you know, there's licensing fee. It's only $10. So you know the material, you go take the test. So there's multiple stages that you go through. Like in the U.S. market, you know, we have you know, we have a technician license, and then after that there's a general class license, and then the third one, the highest one, is an extra class license. So each license awards you different abilities, I guess you could say. And the first one, you can operate on any frequency above 50 megahertz. and then the second one you can operate on pretty much everything else with the exception of 100 kilohertz here and 100 kilohertz there. So they've kind of stuck. It's about 300 kilohertz or so that across different bands in the high frequency spectrum that you can't operate on with a general class license. But everything else you can operate your station on. So just to get going as a technician, you're looking at $10 for the fee, and if you just want to, that most of that stuff is either microwave stuff, which you could do all of the the playing with these wireless technologies that we all know and love with a tech license. Set up some microwave dishes, use 3 gigahertz spectrum, play around, have a good time. Or you could just get on like 2 meter repeaters and 220 repeaters. 2 meters is a reference to the wavelength of the frequency that you're at. So it's about 144 megahertz. And so there's all sorts of people that have put repeaters on mountains and all kinds of different places.
JJ, give me a dollar. Give me a dollar amount, JJ.
A dollar amount? Okay. Well, if you just wanted to talk on repeaters, you have to. It's like saying if you wanted to, buy a router, how much is it going to cost? Well, what do you want to do? I mean, do you want to route 10 gigs or do you want to...
Are we talking distance? So if I wanted to talk to other people in the States, if I wanted to be able to get that kind of distance.
Well, you're going to have to go into HF. So the idea with VHF is it's near line of sight. I wouldn't say near line of sight. I mean, it does have propagation over hills, but we'll call it near line of sight for VHF operation. And so that's going to get you, if you're on a hilltop, anything that you can see, and then beyond, trees aren't an obstacle at VHF frequencies, or not much of an obstacle. There is attenuation that occurs, of course, but it's not like up in the gigahertz regions like what we're used to playing with. You can buy a handheld radio and talk to locals within 100 miles for using repeaters for $30.
That's cool.
So,
is there a way, let's say, JJ, like bouncing off the ionosphere, the way I've heard about this, so that, let's say, I could talk to you without using Skype?
Oh, certainly. I've got a radio right here on my desk. So that's the general class license. So that's everything below 50 megahertz. So that's when you get into bouncing the signals, off the ionosphere, is with, like a shortwave radio. And that's where you really can, the sky's the limit on the money. But an entry-level radio is about $500 to do HF. As a matter of fact, that is a $500 radio laying right there. And that's an Alinco DX-SR8. So it's a pretty neat radio to get on the air. I use that to do like special event stations if I go out in the field. It's something I lug around. The radio I have on my desk here, and this whole setup here is probably about $2,000 that I have on my desk here. So, but the sky's the limit. This is, a fairly inexpensive HF station. So, some of these guys, it's ridiculous. Like you'll be talking to somebody and you'll look him up on that QRZ website, and he's got a $10,000 radio and a commercial tower in his backyard with a humongous Yagi antenna. And when you're talking about Yagi antennas at 40 meters, a full wavelength at 40 meters is 40 meters. So, the boom on these antennas is like 40 foot long.
Holy crap.
It's the centerpiece that all the elements come off of. And, they're just ginormous antennas.
Kind of like the one in James Bond, I think it was in GoldenEye. Remember when they were sliding down on the dish?
I've actually got a 70-foot tower and an antenna. It's called a Mosley Pro. I think it's the 50 or the 67B that I'm going to put up in my home in this coming summer. It's a summer project, and the boom on this antenna is 27 foot long, and my neighbors are going to love me. So,
just wiped off the value of the property.
No, it's just all the birds that it's going to attract. They're just going to be so upset.
Yeah.
But JJ,
So
can you explain to me something that you mentioned before about? I think it was JJ Wilson, Justin Wilson had said to me about quarter wave, half wave antennas, and now you were saying full wave. In 30 seconds, what's the difference between each one? And what's
okay, like I was saying before, 80 meters. We'll go to 2 meters. It's easier to think about. So 144 megahertz, you've got a full wavelength is 2 meters long. Half wavelength is 1 meter long. Then a quarter wavelength is about 19 inches. So that's the length of the antenna. And what you're doing is, if you looked at it, if you looked at RF on like an oscilloscope, the wavelength is from here's your sine wave. And so the wavelength is from here to here,
Yeah.
So from the one point to the other point, and that's your wavelength. So a quarter wavelength would be collecting, a quarter of that sine wave, where a full wavelength you would be collecting the entire thing. So obviously, collecting more signal with a bigger antenna, you're going to have more decibels to work with in your receiver.
All right. Okay, cool.
That might have been more like a minute, but that's
it was still pretty good going, I have to say. So you don't lose any information by just going with you just lose signal strength. Is that basically it?
Right. You don't actually lose you have phase issues and different things. Another good resource. There's a couple of guys that make a podcast called Ham Nation. It's on twit.tv. It's a really good podcast to check out. They cover a lot of really advanced topics, and a lot of these guys blow my mind daily. These are old school RF engineers from years gone by, and still all their techniques and technology is extremely relevant today.
When I hear stuff like that, that is so interesting, because the things I know now aren't going to be useful in 5 years, which is so unfortunate. I felt just like our like at the data center, we've got a guy that does our critical facilities, like our power, and his resume starts before I was born, right? But I'm fairly certain that electricity hasn't changed in the last few million years, so everything he learns and does stays relevant. So I feel like a couple of years I'm going to be replaced by a 16-year-old. Yeah.
I like to say, think of the electronics, like this phone here. It's a brand new phone that I just got, and I paid a fortune for this thing, and in 12 months I would throw it in the garbage can probably. Where you can take a 50-year-old amateur radio transceiver. If I was on a desert island and I got one thing, and I was stranded by myself, well, two things. One, electricity to power it, a solar panel or a battery or whatever. And two, being a 50-year-old piece of something, it would be an HF AM transceiver, and I would get myself off that island with some 50-year-old technology. There's no other thing that I can think of in electronics that has withstood the test of time like transceivers or radio. All of these theories that I've learned with amateur radio apply directly to what we're doing in the microwave world. Like, it's all the same science. It's just you're moving it up the spectrum. It's all the rules of everything are still the same. The physics are the same. You're just using them in higher frequencies. So.
One quick question. When you were talking about the custom codecs that you're designing and testing, for the voice codec for digital over your radio equipment, is it completely clear, let's say, compared to the analog stuff that you would have been, let's say, I suppose, training and getting your license on? Is it like a Skype conversation? Do you get the breakup of voice in the same way as you do with mobile phones with packet loss, or like what's your experience with the codec? Just as a matter of interest, it was just a question. If I was on the last one, I would have definitely went. How's that going? So I said I may as well take advantage.
I got you. Codec 2, it's very early in its development cycle, so it does work. The modem itself is a 16 QPSK modem, so that means that it's sending 16 31 baud streams when you're modulating your the carrier, and so you're sending about 1.2K, 1.6K of data across this modem. So their assembling rate and all this kind of stuff is still being worked out. So and when you're transmitting on high frequency or HF bands, you have a lot of fading, or a lot of what they call QSP. So from one moment to the next, you might your signal may be going over the pole, or you might be hitting the person on second hop, or there's a lot of weirdness. And then there's a lot of things that happen with the ionosphere from moment to moment. So you have these fading events. So the fact that it works at all is really amazing. But it's not like the conversation we're having right now. It's not as high quality. It's more tinny. The audio codec is a lot more restricted. It's not as wide. You're stuffing a lot of information in a very tiny place, because the entire HF band that the entire world uses, well, HF completely is only 30 megahertz wide. So put that into perspective of what we do on a daily basis. So that 30 megahertz, you have to put a whole bunch of stuff in there. So for example, the 40 meter ham radio band is, let's see, it's 7 megs to 7,300 megs. So it's 300 kilohertz wide. So inside that 300 kilohertz, you've got hundreds of conversations. So it's a different animal altogether. And the quality of the communications is much lower, but there's no infrastructure other than point A and point B.
And that still blows my mind. If phone conversation in 1K, because like 711 is it's like 64K or something like that.
Yeah.
It's so
exactly.
That's just, and to think you're blasting that and bouncing it off just the atmosphere, if you think about it, and hitting the other side of the world, that's just.
Yeah, and it truly is amazing science, and I enjoy playing with it. And the theories, like for example, the guys that are making AirFiber for Ubiquiti, most of those guys are amateur radio operators, and the whole thing, all of this stuff that exists, that's coming out of their brains, is because they said when they first worked on the original Motorola, before they were even at Motorola, they wanted a way to pass traffic between point A and point B, and they did it in amateur radio spectrum before they moved it into commercial spectrum. So
going back to the AirFibers, something that popped in my head earlier is we were talking about those 5 gigahertz AirFibers that have a 1.5 dish at, what did you say, like 65 miles is kind of what they're saying. That's
what they're advertising.
Doesn't a 1.5 dish seem kind of small for a 65-mile shot?
Yeah, but they can increase the RP. So you can increase the power of the emitter to make up for the lack thereof on the antenna to get the ERP, or your total link budget. However, when you have a smaller antenna, your beam is going to be wider, so your side lobes are wider. So I'm curious as to how they're approaching that very thing.
Because my understanding is that at those great distance, a larger antenna is going to narrow the beam, which is also going to ignore external signals. And in most parts of the world that I've seen where people are actually doing wireless ISPs, there's not just one, there's multiple. So you've got other people in the 5 gigahertz spectrum blasting out stuff. Well, on top of that, I'm trying to do a 60-mile link with this external noise on a tiny antenna. It just seems so hard to believe that.
The longest thing
I think that's in ideal situations where your spectrum is perfect.
Yeah, like the longest link we have now, in fairness, Ireland is a small country, so we have our benefits, and we do have lots of hills, or we'd call them mountains, you'd call them hills. But, luckily, like I suppose 34 kilometers, which is around 20, there'd be about 21 miles, will be kind of the longest link. We're doing that with 24 dBi dishes. We probably could go with 29s and get a slightly better performance, But I've heard, like what you were saying, JJ, the 40-mile links. But for let's say if they were trying to do commercial stuff over it, where they're trying to do high bandwidth, they generally try to go even up towards 32 dBi for that to get the the receive signal as high as possible on the on the receiving side. But
get the modulation rate up. Like the 42-mile link that I have right now, I'm running the the 2-foot Ubiquiti dishes, and I'm running rockets at 10 megahertz, and I see maybe about 20 to 22 megabits across that link, which for where it's at, that's plenty.
Is that 3.6? So that's the 3.6, is it, or 3.4?
That's 5 gigahertz.
5 gigahertz. And you're running at 10 megahertz. Being very so you like to conserve channel space as much as possible, and
in this case, the 10 megahertz isn't about conserving space; it's about the distance involved. At 20 megahertz, the modulation rates are crap. Now, if I were to upgrade the dishes to larger dishes, I could probably run 20 megahertz and have good throughput. But since I am being stingy and
cheap bastard,
running small dishes, 10 megahertz gets me the throughput that I need.
What I wonder whenever I think of that, these dishes, is why couldn't RF Elements make like an extension? So it's basically just a machined extension that you would just bolt to the front of the assembly that would just make the dishes bigger.
Well, you would have to extend the feed as well, because it changes the focal point.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, so I like the, how do you pronounce it? Is it Cassis grain? The when they fold the beams.
Yeah, Castle grain. Yeah. Castle
grain. Sorry. See, it's cool having an RF legend on this.
I'm just surrounded by people that are way smarter than me.
No, JJ had an unfair advantage. Like literally, his dad helped run the terrestrial stations that did the communications with the space shuttles.
No, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, dude. So it's like he was.
That's not classified, Greg.
Well, not anymore, obviously.
Oh, well, it's pretty cool. Like, top drawer. That's kind of cool. So you were. That's actually awesome. Actually, that's savage.
Crazy, right? Yeah. So it's almost like he's got an unfair advantage. So I'm not even impressed anymore. It's like, you were born to do this.
I feel like he should invoice me for 1 hour and 24 minutes of his time.
Greg, some of the dishes on that tracking station were they're 30-meter dishes. So
that's pretty cool.
I mean, it's big stuff. But yeah, it's cool stuff. It's now, you can look it up now. It's called PARI, Pisgah Astronomical Research Institute. And you can actually see some of you can see the stuff, because they actually do sky mapping with it now, like microwave sky mapping. Since we're friends with the Russians now.
I mean, we're over there doing the Olympics, right? So obviously we're friends.
Oh yeah, and I don't know if you're seeing the news about Ukraine. Like, it's like every hour there's something new happening there. Like, so it's crazy there at the moment.
Scary stuff.
Yeah, no, it's makes you be thankful for how lucky. Excuse me, that we are. It's but. And have you any other questions about the mum? The women were very good. I have to say, the women were
all 30 of them.
All 30 of them, yeah. But there was a few boot babes that were pretty impressive. Probably the number one was in RF Elements. She was tidy enough, in fairness to her. And she wasn't really a boot babe. She actually works there. She just happens to be hot,
Gotcha.
Gotcha. Yeah, if you visit that Perry website, and down the left-hand side on navigation, there's I think it says for news media, and then under that there's photos. You can actually see some photos of the campus.
That's cool. So while we're talking about the MOM, let's run through the rest of the stuff. They were talking about the CCR 109s, 2 models. One's got 2 SFP ports and 8 copper gig ports. That one's coming around $425. And then there's one that's got an SFP and an SFP Plus with 8 gig copper for right at $500, which I think is pretty interesting. But I'm wondering, because that's going to be one of the tile ARs with the 9 core. So I guess in theory, could you actually push 8 gigs of traffic through one? I'm fairly certain it's not going to be able to handle it, but it's still pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, like I think they'd be ideal for kind of your base station, you know, for either PPPoE concentration or something like that. I think that's where they'll come into their own, and like they've been working hard at trying to do the multi-core PPP, you know, and they've had a lot of work to do on that, I believe. I think to improve stability and stuff like that, and I think they're probably getting close. I was talking to a couple of German guys, and they were saying that the when you have multi-core stuff, that the new in 6.10, I think Patrick Schaub's presentation had that. He was talking about results in terms of where you see the CPU usage. You know, when you have a single, you know, it used to be single threaded basically. So I think it could be exciting to use, let's say, a cloud core or even 1100 2HX. Oh Jesus, sorry, you know yourselves. But I think I think they'd be useful in base station deployments, kind of their edge, or getting close to the edge, as opposed to being core, you know, that kind of way.
And you were talking about the multi-core support. I think still for like simple queues, if you make one simple queue that has a PC queue built into it, all of that goes onto one core, right? But
that is, as far as I know, it is, and I think that's why x86 based routers are still quite important to people, particularly that type of configuration. Like I have heard of people go and switch it to cloud core, and then what they would do is they'd actually you know, switch back. Like they still use cloud core is great if you're not doing a huge amount of queuing on the platform,
right.
But if you're doing something that is a little bit taxing on a single threaded process, effectively you're kind of going back to the more traditional kind of x86 where, you know, they have more operations per clock cycle, and so you know, I still think I'd like for them to have 64-bit support on the x86 platform and stop cock blocking it.
Well,
exactly.
I kind of get it, right? You know, it's like if you want all the premium features, you upgrade to our product. So I can't say that I fault them. I guess I get it, right?
I know, but it's just that, like, why not harness the billions of dollars of research that Dell, HP, NEC, and Intel and IBM put into the x86 platform, and like, you know, now, and where they could make money on it is simply create a level 8 license. But I'm not going to re-push this. I've done this before on your podcast, so I'm not going to do it again. But
Gotcha. All right, so the next thing,
just to echo it, I would have to agree with you. A level 8 license would cure it. Charge whatever you want, and there's people that will buy it. That's where they need to take a little bit of the American mentality and take some capitalism and put in there.
Absolutely,
well, just a dash of capitalism.
Absolutely. Look. Here's the story. I've heard of German guys getting 2 servers, paid $5,000 a pop on each server, and then so 5,000 euros. So I'm talking about $7,000, and then you get a level 6 license, which costs you $250, and you get 3 major revision upgrades, which turns into 6 all of a sudden. Because if you put in a beta product, you get automatic, or beta, just one release that's beta, you get an extension on the license life. there's no other software vendor. Like when I was talking to the guys at MikroTik about this, they went, "We don't make money on software," and I said, "I'm aware of that issue, and I know why. It's because you don't charge." You know?
I know how to fix that problem.
You know, it's ridiculous. And these clients then are aggregating thousands of people in. That box is making them serious money. Yeah. And then when there's a problem, they're giving out that they're not getting enough support. But the reality is, if there was a facility for them to make more money off it, I think they'd be able to put more bums on seats. But they have actually expanded. That was one of the statistics I was going to tell you, that they've now 110 employees, according to their brochure, as opposed to 90, I think was the last count. So they are expanding their, I suppose, their research and stuff like that. But I'd like to see more on the software front. You know. But then again, I did ask them for a team of developers to work on my every whim. It's been denied for now. Give me time.
Keep pushing. Keep worrying.
The CAPS manager, was there a whole lot of information about that floating around? And also have a little bit of commentary on that. Maybe if this works good, there's a stadium in the southeast United States that could possibly use this.
John asked me, I was talking with John Sully over a pint, and he had asked me that very question. What do you think of that? And I said, John, I was doing my typing my presentation while you were giving that talk, but so I didn't hear much about it, being honest. Like I'd asked then a couple of things. Oh, do you do power control and automatic frequency selection? And they were saying that they were going to build that in later on. So you know, there's still probably they have more stuff to do on that. So I think it's still, I think they have a lot done and more to do. It's you know, they have more stuff to do on it, basically, I think.
Gotcha.
Oh, I have a joke for you. They give you these nice tags, you see.
Oh, speaker, nice.
So I'm speaker, so what I was thinking was, if I take out Arnis and take out John Tully, then the speaker will be then the controller of MikroTik.
Oh, you're the speaker of the house, is it?
The American Constitution, that's what we have. So I just have to kill off all the other speakers. But I was going to give them various different countries that, you know, you know, I was going to give them Argentina and, you know, you can have Italy. Just, I have to control MikroTik. So I informed Arnis and John of my intentions, but they were less than impressed, of course.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But,
am I correct in thinking that John doesn't he live in like Tennessee or something?
Yeah, I think he's originally from. Oh, geez, he told me this. He is originally. I know I'm caught out that I wasn't listening to John Tully.
That's right.
Look, let's just say the conversation is a blur. We had a great night, but it was more. He lives in Latvia now, but since '93 or something like that. But I think is Tennessee near Louisiana?
Yeah, all that stuff's kind of close-ish.
Well, I mean, driving from Tennessee to Louisiana would be like driving across multiple countries where you're from.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of
yeah,
it's kind of, I don't know, and it depends on where.
I think he is from Tennessee. He is actually, because Memphis. I mentioned I was actually talking about you behind your back, Greg.
Oh, that's okay.
It was all good though. I was saying to you, they're pretty cool. I actually did say you were pretty cool behind your back, but never say it to your face.
Okay. I was about to make a behind my back joke, but then I was thinking that might be inappropriate.
No. Nah, it's all good. But and I have to apologize to you because I remember discussing this, but it was 2 years ago we discussed. Or a year and a half ago, where we discussed about doing black hole triggering.
Yeah. And you knocked it out of the park, brother. I missed your presentation. I wanted to see it though.
No, I actually I think it was less than organized. So, but I enjoyed giving it. But I talk more. I said I'd give you 2 months to do yours, and then. You know, but then I kind of said, "Jeez, just got to do it."
Yeah, you got to.
But it is interesting.
Oh, and whenever you come back to the next mum, you can grab this knife in my back and then take it with you.
Oh.
I have a question for you, Tom. A little bit about RIPE. That's the body over there that does the IP addressing. So, in a nutshell, kind of nuts and bolts of how it works over there versus I'm just trying to compare and contrast here with how it works with ARIN, and it's kind of like almost like a in the United States with ARIN, it's a lot like a kind of like a good old boys club, I guess is what we would call it, where you have like these tiers, and then if you know people, then is it a lot like that with RIPE or?
I found RIPE like the exchange community in Ireland, we were introduced to RIPE by the Irish Neutral Internet Exchange, or Ireland of Ireland Exchange, which is a group of operators just peering, I suppose, together. And it was kind of a good community spirit and they actually had the RIPE conference in Ireland. RIPE 66 was actually in Dublin. And I remember someone texted me going, "Are you going to the thing?" And I said, "Feck off, I'm not travelling to Amsterdam," or something like that. At 5 minutes notice, he goes, "It's in Balls Bridge down the road from you." And I'm like, "Okay, see you in an hour." And it was kind of one of those embarrassing things. But we joined RIPE, I think it was last year, and it was, I have to say, it is an old boys club. There is certainly, you can see guys who are well experienced, but I found the group very open. I found people, it's not like cliquish, that kind of way. And I'm sure, obviously, we wouldn't see the individual power struggles that may go on. But certainly, like, the quality of the presentations and the information shared was pretty impressive. I actually really liked it. I find the RIPE website one thing I will say about RIPE, they do like their documentation and they do like their procedures. Having said that, once you get through that, they're very fair and they're very straight with the procedures. And to be fair to them, they've also tried to create tools to make our lives easier, like stat.ripe.net, BGP Play. There's quite a bit of actual RIPE money going into kind of research for like internet metrics. So for instance, in Hurricane Sandy, they had like this RIPE Atlas project. I don't know if you're aware of it, but it's basically, you can contact RIPE and you can get a little box, and it's very similar in size to the MikroTik Mini AP that you may have seen announced, but it's basically an Athros-based board. They put a 4 gig flash in it, and it becomes basically a little Linux box. You plug it into your network, and then it registers with RIPE, and then they probe it, and you could do experiments. You could do your own probes against other probes of the world and see how the interconnectivity between, let's say, Ireland and the US, Ireland and Venezuela, Ireland and the Ukraine, wherever, it doesn't matter, but so they do a lot of research like that. But for me, where you're working on BGP peering and stuff like that, for my own network and for my customers, we've found those tools to be very useful. While they do like their documentation, I found that the tools they give you and some of the metrics, but like for an example, when Hurricane Sandy hit, it was surprising how much European traffic actually trombones through New York. So when actually, I think there was power damage to the power grid in New York, it actually had a significant impact in Europe. And this is partly because of peering policies of the likes of Liberty Global and the likes of Verizon with Cogent and Level 3, where they'll say, look, you can peer here, but there's not enough local peering going on. And then of course there's the Snowden type controversies as well, but we'll move swiftly on there. It's well above my pay grade, that one. But like, being honest, but a lot of it is practical or commercial things where two operators who are 2 foot away from each other force the other operator to go through another transit provider for whatever reason. It's certainly not to reduce latency on the internet.
No.
Like I did one in Ireland. Like we use Cogent, and we did a trace route for so I'm in Dublin, right? I live in Lucan, and my office is in Park West. They're about 6 miles from each other, and when I do a trace route, I go Dublin, London, Boston, New York, Amsterdam, London, Dublin, and I sent a polite email, kind of going, I think this may be suboptimal. Can you look at it, please? But and it's basically two carriers that are for some reason finding it hard. They're kind of talking to each other, they're flirting with each other, but basically they're not getting it on,
Yeah.
That's basically, and basically either of those carriers are forcing themselves through another carrier to talk. And I don't think it's malicious. I don't think there's any ulterior motive,
Right.
but it's just because even the guy said it. Look, he says our links in Europe are pretty full, so we feel that it's better with the size of the networks involved, because the guys were announcing a slash either 17 or 18, so there was quite a few addresses in it. He says, we're increasing our capacity in Europe, but he says we have to shunt you across the Atlantic for now to get the capacity. So it's capacity versus latency type scenarios, So
okay, so going back to the Rob question, I'm sorry to kind of rewind just a little bit. Let's say, for instance, if in your country you just said, okay, well, I need a /24 and I need my own ASN. What would the procedure be, and what would the dollar amounts be involved in that?
Okay. To apply for right membership or to become a right member, there's a 2,000 euro, so that would be around $3,000 setup fee, if you can imagine. It's pretty regulated. You would basically fill out a form on a website, put in all your addresses, and say that you want to.
So you have to justify it with addresses that you're currently using from other providers, I imagine.
No, actually, no. There is one fundamental rule, which is if you give someone else an IP address that's not in your organization, one person, someone else an IP address that's not in your operation, or if you give IP space to third parties, basically is what they say. They don't say one person, but to third parties, which can be a one person, that means that you are justified in actually allocating or getting, becoming a LIR and getting your own ASN and getting IPv4 space. And you wouldn't get, if you do that, you get a /22. And currently, you do need to have operations, network operations based in the right region. So that's anywhere in Europe, Russia, or some parts of the Middle East. That would be kind of that is the fundamental thing. And then the cost.
I know Greg's probably wondering what's going on in this kid's head. Why is he asking this question?
Well, I've got a lot of experience with dealing with ARIN, and it's pretty straightforward here. You just have to know the right answers to like 2 questions, and it's are you multi-homed? Check. And then you have to be able to justify 80% utilization of your address space within 1 year's time. And you're really
now they want to see
only going to get a
like
/23. That's pretty much all you're going to get.
Yeah, the /23. But in order to get your first allocation, you have to have you have to prove you're multi-home now by sending the paperwork in and having those providers vouch that you have at least /24s with them. So that was kind of an interesting. I mean, we have that, and we're overcoming that hurdle. But when I first put the paperwork in, we only had one /24, but we were multi-homed. We had separate providers, but we didn't have the IP requirements. We weren't doing the /23 because we had used our IP space so effectively, playing by the rules, and so we were punished because we were
late to the game. Yeah, I mean that's really all it is. Had this been 10 years ago, they'd have no problems. You wouldn't have to go through all these hoops to get justification.
Sam said whenever he did his dial-up ISP, they handed him a what was it, a /21. Just bam, there it is.
We got a /21 as well. It's the minimum assignment window they'll give you effectively. Last year, now it's a /22, but the reason for that is the state of exhaustion of the rear ripe isn't, like obviously you're further advanced in using up IPv4. Now I don't feel sorry for you Americans at all, considering that you do have about a third of all, or at least, or maybe 60% of all IP space anyway. But the
DoD has a lot of it, so we don't in the commercial space don't get it.
Yeah, well, you know what? Also, like HP had a /8, and Compact had a /8, and when they combined, they kept them both. I know, dude. There's a lot of inefficiencies out there that they just need to reclaim.
But I think there's one way of solving the debt crisis in the US, and I don't think the US Department of Defense wants publicly the addresses on each and every terminal in the Department of Defense. Something about security would tell me that probably is not such a hot idea, and hopefully now they're not sending anyone to kind of have a quick chat with me. But you know what I mean, like as in you could actually sell quite a lot of that off and actually, deal with the debt crisis.
I think there's also like I think they had like a /4 or something like that was marked as experimental, like a big experimental block. And it's like, well, you never did any experiments with it. It's still sitting there. Why not just hand it out? I mean, that would extend the exhaustion for probably another 5 years. They just don't want to do it though.
Yeah, no, I mentioned that on Facebook, and Wardner Maya, he's from MT Brazil, but he's actually on the board of directors of LACNIC. Really nice guy, really unassuming. I think you should have him on the program sometime soon, because he's really cool, like really structured presentations like yourself, Greg, but like he was saying, like when he saw my message about, Jesus, why don't they just release this /4? He just kind of goes, look, trying to get more IPs addresses out of IPv4 is like getting blood from a stone. Let's just go to IPv6. And some of the guys, you see, the problem with some of these organizations is they're a choir and they're all preaching to each other. They're going, yes, IPv6 rocks and all this type of stuff. And we're kind of going, seriously, guys, it's just but it's a kind of nice story that most of us will only move when we really, really have to. Like last minute document.
I don't see the motivation to go to 6. I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to shoot me for that, but
this is the motivation, right?
Well, yeah, that everybody's got that in their pocket, but still, like here in the States, we have so much V4 that's already distributed. Everybody knows how to use it, and there's not that many resources that I go to on a daily basis that have V6 address space. So what's the draw for me until all of the Facebooks and all of the Googles and all of the major retailers and resources have V6 space? Why am I going to bother?
Well, Facebook's IPv6 range is pretty cool. It's FACE B00C. That's awesome. I mean, but like for me, we've ran a couple of IPv6 courses in Ireland, expecting the impending doom, wondering when the last address would be given out, and then nothing happened, you know. It's kind of like you're getting this prepared for this big hurricane, and then, a tumbleweed just goes across the
it's another Y2K.
Yeah, Y2K. Oh my God, the toaster's going to stop working. I'm going, I don't think there's even a chip in the toaster.
I think as more, more Chinese get more and more smart devices and they become more network, oriented culture, that's going to force the hand of going to 6, because when the demand spikes in in the Asian countries with all that population, uh, it'll absolutely I think that'll be what really ultimately pushes it. You know, everybody walking around with it, and machine to machine. You know, I want, uh, that's something that it interests me more than just about anything else is machine to machine communications, and just having everything on my desk and in my house talk to each other on some level, and having public IP addresses on all this stuff. So I think that machine to machine and mobile devices in people's pockets will be the two things that kind of servers and things like that. I don't think, that are the driving force of it, but I think mobile and machine to machine will be what causes it to finally happen.
Well, you touched on a good point there, JJ, because as far as I know, in Japan and China would probably have the most advanced and most progressed IPv6 deployment, precisely because of the population base, and also precisely that I suppose they may have been later to the internet game in terms, obviously ARPANET or whatever it was before it was the internet as we now know it. But the other thing, one of the things that I think is kind of cock-blocking IPv6 adoption, because I know there's probably a lot of providers who are sitting on nice maybe /16s, /18s and would like to monetize that. And if they're mainly client subscriber base, they would probably like to pull the IPs from customers that wouldn't know the difference if they were just running IPv6 as clients.
Did you guys see whenever Microsoft acquired, who was it, Nortel Networks? They had a /8, and in the acquisition, when they acquired them, part of the paperwork that was put through, they set the precedence at about $3 an IP address on the acquisition. So that was the first time that I guess a precedence had been set on that on an acquisition of a /8. So that was
and then in the WISP world, I mean, JJ, you were talking about how difficult it is to acquire IP addresses. There's a company that's got something of a bad name here called Skybeam in the States, and they basically are gobbling up WISPs left and right. So what they do is they move in, they look at how many subscribers you have, they run it, they have like a basic math formula, and they pay you so much. And for a lot of guys, it's an offer you can't refuse. And they've been purposely buying up WISPs that have those big legacy blocks of IPs. They don't give a crap about their user base. They don't give a crap about their infrastructure. And it can even be WISPs that are failing, ultimately just terribly tanking, but they have a big chunk of IP, so they scoop them up just to acquire those rights. Yeah. Because I mean, it's money in the bank. They know it is.
Right.
But one of the issues I see that's preventing me from deploying IPv6 and is the complexity is that most of the content is on IPv4. Yeah. Now, in fairness, Google, as far as I know, a fair bit of economy and likes of Facebook and Yahoo are all IPv6 ready, but all the other content is all IPv4. So now you need now 64 NAT, right, which MikroTik, as far as I know, don't support yet. I think it's available in open BSD type platforms, or I'm sure uber expensive kind of carrier stuff would do it. But then you're doing 64 natting, so now you're actually natting, which basically means you now have to do we've got quite strict data retention laws, so to be able to identify the perpetrator of a crime, not that we don't have to track, but it's kind of, I suppose, like that infamous metadata, basically, what time do they connect and what time do they disconnect, But all we had to do as ISPs currently is give them one public address and just say, you don't have to do any other logging. But if you've got lots of IPv6 clients and then you're coming out an IPv4 gateway, now you have to start trying to pair up sessions, because you have a single IPv4 address or maybe 20 or 100 IPv4 addresses, and they're being contended across lots of IP6 clients. And this is it's a difficult issue it's a technological challenge, and I'm not aware of any elegant, cost-effective solutions to that problem. And being honest, it would stop me because IPv4 addresses have a value, as you're saying, and some guys want to use it for hosting, and are more than happy to rent or sell. But you know, there's that issue that that you know what we were talking about. But I was hearing from one guy, Valens was talking to a friend of mine, and they were saying that there was an IGF, Internet Governance something or another, forum probably, where you know it's basically governments and big carriers come to meet, and they're trying to obviously exert control over the internet, or the government's kind of, they realize, geez, there's this big technological thing that we know nothing about. Okay, we'll just leave it off to the geeks to deal with, which is a lovely way to do it. But I think that may be, you know, coming to, you know, they're kind of realizing, shit, these guys can actually take governments down by Twitter and all this. This is not good. We need to do something about this. But, you know, there's kind of a bit of that going on. But they were saying at the IGF forum that about 20 to 30% of the traffic was actually IPv6, which was kind of surprising. So the guy in question had organised the traffic, you know, the bandwidth for that event, and you know, he just said a very simple thing. What what was the network traffic flow, and it was literally not network flow, sorry, net flow, but it was just IPv4 versus IPv6. So, you know, the ether type, it was quite astounding to have, you know, 30% IPv6 traffic. But then again, those type of people might be more inclined to use IPv6.
So is Netflix and things like that a big thing in your country?
Absolutely huge. House of Cards has dramatically reduced my productivity over the past
You've got to watch Orange is the New Black if you haven't seen that.
I was watching The Unit, so I've watched all episodes of The Unit, and I've watched the first House of Cards with Kevin Spacey. He's likable, but he's a bit scary, you know. But I think it's good. He's brilliant in it. Orange is the New Black. I don't know. It sounds a bit cheesy, like, you know. But then again, maybe I need to just sit down.
It's hilarious.
Is it? Oh, well, if it's hilarious, then you've got me at that. No, I thought it might be like Grey's Anatomy or something.
No, it's just really funny.
Okay, well,
yeah, I've not watched those. I've kind of been off in
Hamland,
you know, inventing land. Yeah.
But like if I was to look at, let's say, our traffic flows, let's say, to our internet exchange point in Ireland, Google by far is the biggest provider of content to our users. So like where we're peaking at about 140 megabits per second onto the exchange, up to 100 megabits of that is Google.
Wow.
Which is significant.
Does that include YouTube when you say Google?
I mean YouTube, pretty much. The other
for us, it's Akamai.
Akamai will be around about 20 to 30 megabits per second. We have actually, there's this tool, if you have anyone who's trying to set up internet exchange, there's INEX the guys in INEX actually wrote a software called IXP Manager. You can Google it, it's on GitHub, and you can download it, and it basically is for managing internet exchange points. But it's really nice, like you get all graphs of, you know, it hooks in with SNMP and NetFlow or SFlow on Brocade switches, and basically you can actually see the traffic. You can actually see the traffic you're exchanging with all your different peers. So there's about 86 members, you know, in INEX today. So there's graphs, 86 graphs come up on your peer-to-peer maps, and you can actually see who's actually, you know, delivering content to your network, or who are you uploading to. Yahoo, you know, will be small enough in terms of traffic. Amazon will be small enough in terms of traffic, which I was surprised, but I'm only getting Amazon in Ireland. I'm not getting the full Amazon peering. So Amazon are on.
So do you see, like, when you say Amazon, are you talking about like AWS and Limelight and
Exactly.
and
AWS mainly. Limelight is actually kept is a separate one. Problem is because we're a small one. Uh, some of the guys, basically, some of them would peer with the root servers, which is great because it means that the mere mortals like me get a good shot. But then there's other ones who, for traffic management reasons, want bilateral peers. So it's hard to sometimes justify peering with someone for a couple of megs of traffic. Now, I was fortunate, in fairness, with the likes of Yahoo and Amazon. They were very helpful and they did get me a peering session. Primarily, my target was to reduce latency, to keep the latency down for my client base. But Akaimi was around 30 megs. Amazon would be around 6 to 7 megs. Yahoo kind of the same levels, but it's only Amazon in Ireland, so it's not the full Amazon in the US. I still transit because and Amazon are fairly fair. You know, they say, look, if you're in 2 European cities, we give you the full Amazon routes, but if you're only in one city, which is where we are, then you know they're not going to use their transit backhauls for me. You know, that kind of way. So like I'm getting the local traffic from them, which is, I think, fair, in fairness to them. Netflix, just to answer that question to you, Netflix is around 20 megabits, 25 megabits per second. Netflix is huge. I mean, it has Netflix, and there's also, we have a thing called RT Player, which is kind of like our national television station, and they obviously started delivering content, video on demand, kind of like BBC iPlayer. I don't know if you've heard of that over in the States. If BBC is, I'm sure you have similar with Time Warner or something like that. But effectively, those and the behavioral patterns you can see in the graphs. You know, when your usage graph, you now see that the peak happens between around 7 p.m. and about 12, and then it's still quite high at 1. So there are the people who stay and watch, and then
I think they just sit there. I think they just turn it on and fall asleep. That's what they're doing on our network. So.
And then at about 3 a.m. it just drops off the end of a cliff. Is that what you're seeing as well? So
yeah,
it's amazing, but it's not like peer-to-peer where, you know, you would often have very big traffic for, you know, extended period of times. The behavior of users, you can actually see the peaks are really when people are actually watching TV now. So they're, you know, they're either on their laptop and watching TV, or they're actually watching their favorite thing on their laptop or computer.
I know for us, we're here in a college town, and we service, like, for our I guess, kind of home users. They're mostly MDU, so apartment complexes, and it's usually full of college students. And so we're seeing about 80% of our traffic is streaming video, going to Netflix and Hulu and YouTube. Really, are probably the big.
It's certainly growing. Like if you look at INX.ie, like you can actually see the traffic has increased on INX by 20% in the last month. So we were at 57 megabits per second, and now they're at around 65, 66 gigabits per second. Sorry. So they were peaking at that. So I definitely think there is a growth in it. Like Netflix was only launched in Ireland, I think, about a year and a half ago, but it is really getting traction, particularly with the iPads and those type of devices. It is becoming like for our network, it's becoming more of an issue. But Netflix is a hungry dog. You know, if you gave it 100 megs, it would use it. You know, so sometimes you have to kind of say, look, you know, 2.5 megs is enough for your stream, except for super ultra high. Like Netflix in Ireland, what they tend to do is they'll actually go on net with ISPs. So they'll actually, with the bigger carriers, they will actually put caches in the ISP themselves.
Yeah, they're doing that here in the States too, but you have to be fairly sizable before they'll look at that.
Yeah, no, like as in these guys would have at least a few 100,000 subscribers. You know, they're kind of your carrier type. But like for INX, it's great. Like for us, like being a small ISP, you know, you can kind of just you're working with other ISPs and you're kind of sharing the port costs, and the content providers are all more than happy to, like Amazon have 2 10 gig interfaces on INX, you know, and they're I think Google are probably the same, you know, but it's quite good. Like like we only joined there in about October last year. We moved to a data center, got kind of things properly set up. You know, before we were just getting plain old transit, you know, from one provider, and it's made a massive difference to us. What's the story with the exchanges, though? I hear that in the US, they're a lot more commercial, that they're not. Like INX in Ireland is owned by the members and is controlled by the members. So, you know, we all have a season.
Like, I can kind of comment on that a little bit, and I'm sure Greg can too. The one that I'm the most familiar with is in Atlanta at 56 Marietta. It's owned by Telex, and it's actually 2 floors of a hotel, you know, a huge hotel. And, you know, to go in there, you actually buy space from, they call themselves a carrier neutral facility, and to go in there and lease space from these guys, you know, it's not cheap. You know, you pretty much have to, you know, to go in there, you know, first of all, you got to have at least a rack, and then cross connects are so much, yep, and this is so much, and so they, it can get pretty ridiculous really quick for a smaller entity to try to get in there. Then the next thing you got to think about is you're sitting in the middle of Atlanta, so you got to have transit away from there to get you to, you know, Podunkville out in you know, North Carolina, or I think Greg's commented to me before about some people he knows that's doing something out of Telex down to some southern states or
Florida.
something.
Florida to Atlanta. We Texas, being the great nation that it is, that happens to sit sort of close to the United States, we have some of the.
Well, when that happens, I'm coming there. You guarantee
that. I mean, that's why our flag has 1 star on it, because it's just, this is what it would look like without the rest of you. So we've got, you know, huge peering points in Dallas, a lot of peering in Houston as well, and then Austin has a lot of but Dallas really is like one of the major peering points in the entire United States, and so I happen to be fairly close to that, so it works out pretty well. But here in the States, man, data centers, if you want to go into a data center with your own fiber, you pay a penetration fee. So you pay just to get in the building, and then you have to buy a rack, and then you have to pay for every cross connect that you do. So even if you want to peer with other providers to, you know, help kind of share the load, it does you a favor, does me a favor, you still have to pay, you know, sometimes a fairly sizable cross connect fee monthly just to make that happen. So your scale, I mean, you have to really grow to be such a big size to where that's going to save you more money than you're spending. You know, so it's kind of the chicken or the egg. It's sort of hard to do those things.
I know once you get to the point where you're commanding, you know, at Telex at least, when you're commanding, you know, 6+ gigabits of traffic, you can get into non-settlement peering agreements with some of these carriers, where you guys just swap settlements every month, and I have one person that I've done some work for that is in a situation like that, and he was explaining to me exactly how it worked, and that's, you know, part of the good old boy network I was talking about earlier. It's just absolutely amazing, you know, to, you know, he's a guy from, you know, an IX from, you know, back from the 90s, and he still has all of his connections on all these glass networks.
Yeah,
so it's,
I mean, that's the trick. You still have to get, so if you want to peer, say, with Quest, or they're not Quest anymore now, they're CenturyLink, or say a level 3, global crossing level 3, you still have to find one of their facilities that they own. You have to get a connection into there, and then they may waive the cross connect fee if you're willing to do, you know, kind of the agreement with them. But it's still, you have to pay that transit cost. As long as you can get yourself on net, you can convince them that you're big enough. Fortunately for our data centers that we've convinced them, and we've done that due diligence, I guess, and gotten that connected. So we're on net with level 3 in both of our locations, CenturyLink, so we could do those peering agreements. But
Yeah, no, for smaller operators like
It's
us,
so difficult. Yeah.
but like for us in Ireland, like the IXP, let's say it would cost about the entry level cost was actually reasonably low. To be fair, the IXP it basically 2,000 euros a year, which is not so much. Like
Yeah.
it's $3,000,
That's not bad.
and that gives you a 100 meg port and a second 100 meg port on a second redundant VLAN, or not VLAN, second redundant infrastructure, and then it's just under $4,000 for a gigabit, a gigabit port on it, per year. The cross
I'm
connect.
coming over there.
Yeah, no, like to be honest, it's exceptional value, for us. It was the data center cost was, like what you were saying, was kind of the way I look at it was we knew the value of joining the IXP was going to be huge for us, but it was just the recurring revenue.
Yeah.
We were trying to grow it so that we could just get up to that value, For us, like the cross connection fees, copper will be around 20 quid a month. So $30 a month. Fiber will be around $50 a month or something like that for a cross connection.
That's really fair price.
What's really nice for us is that we're literally behind the rack. We're literally like, as in, there's about 2 foot of space between me and the INX rack, so it's kind of cool. Although I can't throw a fiber apparently across the corridor. That's as much as I'd love to. No, but like still the whole thing is, I have one cross connecting or 2 cross connects in there. They can be upgraded to 10 gig, and then I can peer with whoever I want through the exchange. I haven't done any private peering. More than likely.
So these costs that you were talking about, is that also the co-location space, or that's just for the ports, then the drops?
For the ports, but I think they'll include up to 3U in co-location. So if you want 3U, so you could throw a couple of small x86 based routers. So it is pretty good value, to be fair to them. But the whole idea was, to reduce the cost of membership and try and increase traffic levels locally, and even for us, because we're a small ISP, and I hate saying that, to say that first Ireland then the world, but it's we are a small fish, but even for us, even with the reduced costs that they were trying to, and they actually, in fairness to them, they've always reduced their costs. They're obviously looking at a bigger infrastructure now, so that may impact costs, but you get what you pay for. You have to, but they've been really good to us, and they were really helpful as well. That's one thing. They're kind of like you guys.
When I'm talking to my family and friends and different people I know, I try explaining to them exactly how small the internet really is, and they look at me like I'm insane, and they kind of laugh at me, and they think it's this huge, omnipotent thing that lives up, up in the clouds, I guess, and it's just a series of machines connected to other machines, and then you get in these facilities and start looking around, and it's like I've been to Telex twice now, and you go in there and you walk around, and it's like, okay, so this is pretty much the exchange for the entire Southeast, and it's not like going to Disney World. It's like, it's just it's relatively small. It's 2 floors of a hotel.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of routers humming away.
And for us, we got a rack. We got actually a half rack, but we're expanding into the full rack. So we kind of cut a deal. We said, look, we want to keep our initial recurring costs down. So we went to and I suggest this to anyone else. We said, look, we need a half rack now. I said, just under half rack, but I said, for a few months, we want to keep it at that, but we want to grow into it. So I don't want to have a half rack here and have to be supervised when I open it, and then another half rack somewhere else in 6 months' time. So just, give us the benefit of the doubt. And that was kind of a condition I attach to kind of going with that data center. So we've actually good data center space in Ireland, and part of the reason for it is we're so reasonably cold. You know, I think there might be 5 days of the year that the temperature is above 22 degrees, so you can just use, you know, air cool, you know, forced air rather than you know, actual AC type cooling, you know, that type of stuff. You know, Amazon, Microsoft, Yahoo, Google, they all have data centers in Ireland, and that's particularly why I think, you know, it's nice to be on that exchange, because all those carriers are there, you know. And
yeah, all these data centers here in the south, you know, they have multiple Lieberts stacked on top of each other, and it's all cooling towers.
Oh, yeah.
and I mean, it's a massive effort to keep the stuff cool, especially in the summer. And it's quite incredible, these processes that you're talking about. In you know, here in my region, you know, see 48U rack with a gigabit drop, bare minimum $1,500 a month, plus a $1,500 setup fee. So if you sign up for $1,500 worth of services, then you're paying, you know, $1,500 setup fee. So that's $3,000 on 0 day.
yeah, no, to be fair, the costs of setting up the data center for the rack, because so rather than get the 3U and INX, what we did was we just got a cross connect to INX for the 2 foot.
And that's 20 amps of power. So
that's 20 amps of power. I have 16 amps. I'm currently at 8 amps because I'm in half rack, but basically the cost is basically around €1,200, and that will rise to around €1,500 or $1,500 a month. You know, when I go full rack, and I think if I hit 20 amps, I have to. What's that in kVA? No, sorry, your 20 amps is a lot bigger than, or smaller than my 20, because we're at 220. Sorry.
Well, in our racks we're running 220 as well. So.
Oh right. Oh, you run 220, like 50 hertz, yeah? Or is it 220?
Well, it's 60 hertz.
Oh, it's like 2-phase type thing, is it, or is it like 2 phases, kind of like 110 and 110?
Yeah, it's 2 phases. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. Then you're kind of more or less the same as us. So, yeah.
But lots of times we'll, you know, a lot of our equipment may not support that, so we'll. Most of the servers do, because they're, you know, they're world devices. But a lot of the, you know, random things that we get, we've actually got a power strip in our, or a PDU in our rack. That's actually
look, you can.
We're consumers, you're a producer, so
well,
one day it'll be the other way around. So.
Yeah, I hope so.
But like, if we were, but like, I was more talking about the internet exchange rather than the data providers. Like, is there many member-owned, like kind of like organizations, kind of like INX or AM6 in the AM6 in the US, or you know, or is it's mainly the carriers in the data center kind of get people to peer, is it?
Yeah. I guess, I mean, you have the major players here, you know, like your level 3s, your Time Warner, or they're not Time Warner, they're TW Telecom now, your Zayo, which used to be AboveNet, your Cogents, I mean, those guys, the Hurricane Electrics, those guys, they do most of that internal peering and stuff like that. You have to really get fairly large before you can kind of jump into those exchanges.
So sometime 2030, Tom should contact them.
Yeah, give or take. Well, no, because all communications will just travel by light at that point, so it won't matter.
Yeah. No, it's
so. Do you have any? Do you do anything in Dallas?
We backhaul some stuff up there, but we don't. Okay. We don't have any peers. Well, our level 3 comes out of Dallas. Our level 3 internet.
The reason I was asking, because that facility is in Dallas is a telex facility. Looks like they have about a dozen spread across.
It's like something Bryan Street, I think. Is that the peering point you're talking about?
Hang on 1 second.
It's like 1818 Bryan Street or something like that up in Dallas. It's one of the big ones.
Yeah, cool.
See, there's one at 8435 Stimians Fairway.
Stimmons, yeah, that's a big
Yeah.
one.
Well, what would be the typical? No, it's a question you probably can't answer. So, no, it was mainly just, or maybe JJ, you can answer. Like, if I wanted to link two cities in the US that were separated by, let's say, 400 miles, like layer 2 switch, not dark fiber, like, but let's say gig layer 2,
Something lit.
What sort of per month charges are we looking at?
I think it depends on distance as well, and if the carrier. So like Global Crossing level 3, they probably have more fiber in the major cities. So if you wanted to connect like Dallas to Houston, that's going to be really easy because you have so many providers that are going to have amongst those major thoroughfares. But then you have some cities where only a handful of providers are actually going to transit through there. So whoever's on net usually is going to give you the best price. And it really depends on your buying power. So like us as a data center, we turn a lot of people onto the carriers and we get a lot of circuits ourselves. So we're going to get a substantially better price than anybody else will. I mean, it's economies of scale, right? So if a regular guy goes to a carrier, he's probably going to pay somewhere around 10 to 25% more for the same service.
Yeah.
Like I can give you an example. We actually have a circuit that's coming online very soon. That it's MPLS, so it's full IP, and we're going to be when it's all said and done, it's about $10 a megabit, and that's just we peer with them and they handle the whole thing. That's with Charter, and
what's the distances involved? Let's say for the link.
To get us to where they peer, it is in Atlanta, so it's about 500 miles.
It's pretty good.
So that's plan A, and to get that's going to be on a gigabit commit for us. And then the second phase of our plan, this is for our data center connectivity, will be we have a second provider called DukeNet, and they pretty much just a lot of their fiber is actually in Charter conduit, so it's the same exact crap. It's just somebody else that has a lease on the physical medium, and so going with them, they'll hand you dark fiber, and so we'll be able to get or I shouldn't say completely dark. It's a wavelength, a 10 gigabit wavelength. They've learned their lessons on handing people dark. So, but a 10 gig wave from where we're at in Waynesville, North Carolina, down to the data center before we do any cross connecting or anything. But I have a kind of an in because I have a friend that already has presence in Telex down there, and so we're actually going to cross connect just to him, and he's already cross connect to everyone else. So that's kind of the he operates a kind of it's a DNS redundancy kind of cloud ordeal where he has DNS servers in like 16 or 17 different data centers across the world, and he does DNS acceleration. But anyway, so to get it from 10 gigs from point A to point B, we're looking at about $12,000 a month. But once we have that, it's it's all pie in the sky right now on the 10 gig stuff, but the gig is actually happening, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And like, so you'd actually just set up BGP peering, so a level like layer 3 peering with your friend who has the DNS redundancy cloud.
Correct. And he connects to level 3 Telesonera, Verizon, Cogent. He's got 14 providers that he's cross-connected with inside Telex.
That's
fairly substantial, yeah.
Yeah, he's no joke. It's funny, he owned the facility that we're in now and sold it, and then he moved to a place where there was no internet, and called us and said, "Can you do anything?" And we said, "Sure." And I said, but I would love some information. So
it's good to know people.
Oh, that was a good call.
yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I tell you what, we're creeping up on 2.5 hours, so we don't have to quit talking, but let's stop the recording. So, JJ, Tom, any words of wisdom?
I just want to get back in here and do it again, and maybe set it up monthly, bi-monthly, where we try to get some kind of schedule going, and just have fun with these technologies and support MikroTik, Ubiquiti, all the people that are innovating.
Yeah.
The industry. That's really all I got to say tonight.
Yeah. All right, Tom, what do you got?
I'm happy to talk. I do try to listen. I'm not so good at that, but no, like, genuinely, it's an honor and a pleasure to be with you guys. So I'm happy to do whenever I can, and it's always a pleasure with you. And come to the European mums. God damn it, we'll show you a good time.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to impose myself on your US mum this year, I think.
I hope so, man. I hope so. So I'm gonna say I am so glad to be talking to you guys again, man. This last year has been probably one of the largest, probably the second largest roller coaster I've ever been on, and one thing that really helped keep me sane was you guys. You know, I mean, I genuinely appreciate you guys, and everybody, not everybody, I can't say everybody, but a lot of the guys I've met in the WISP industry are they're just MacGyvers. You know, you got to throw it together, you got to make it happen, and I think great minds think alike and stick together, and man, yeah, let's keep doing this thing. And good night, everybody, and keep watching.
Peace out.